Hello everyone, thanks for dropping by. You all know who that is. And surprisingly, Florence is about 2 inches shorter than me, so even if she's wearing heels, we'd both be level eye to eye. And the usual question, if I was super wealthy and our orbits cross, would I date her? Nope. Florence comes from Oxford, and her family is upper middle class, so she grew up in the more affluent area of Oxford, whereas I grew up in Warrington. And my family is all working class. So even if I was super wealthy, there'd be a middle class gap between my level and her level. Plus all her family is all in show business types, and her current boyfriend, who works as an actor in Peaky Blinders, is 2 inches taller than me at 5'8". So Florence there is used to acting men in that profession. That's who she's drawn to, and that's who she mingles with. And naturally, about 5'8", he's 4 inches taller than her. So, as before with all these actresses, it would be an interesting observation to see what they all look like in real life, aside from just a picture and the filters and makeup, etc. But I've got to get super wealthy first, and in my time of life that's quite unlikely to happen. Never mind, what you've never had you'll never miss. Now, as you know, there's been lots of articles about the male loneliness epidemic. But loneliness is sort of being researched and commented on from both sides of the aisle. Because looking around over the weekend, I found this. As you can see, it's Cosmopolitan, which is a woman's magazine, and this was done on February the 11th this year. And as you can read, does anyone care that young women are just as lonely as men are? Not really. Most of these young women, they've been feminized, and they just more or less brought it on themselves. It says, please don't talk about the male loneliness epidemic until we acknowledge that women are struggling too. And it starts off with just a sample. A few years ago, this woman and her mother had a blowout fight. The women tend to fight with other women. I can't recall what sparked the argument, but what I do remember is laying on the bathroom floor and sobbing and scanning her text for someone to reach out who could help me, who could keep me distracted from all the sadness. She only had a squabble with her mother. That's not sadness. And in my phone, that's not highlighting it, there are names of dozens of girls I met during my time at college while I was rotating through late-night clubbing, brunches, and concerts in an attempt to get closer to people I hope would one day be bridesmaids at my wedding. But truthfully, these friendships were superficial. It took her that long to work that out. Nothing like that. Nothing like I watched and coveted on a TV show, Girls. So she's been watching a TV show called Girls, where a bit like Sex and the City, and it's female empowerment and all that guff. I couldn't rely on them joining a panic attack if you can't call a friend at 10 p.m. on a weekday when the snot's coming out your nose has made you unintelligible. Are you even a friend? But this woman in particular, she's 21, published journalist, and she good job to a degree, and she lives in New York City. She works out, so it goes to the gym. She loves nature, and she has a great boyfriend. Why didn't she call her boyfriend instead of a girlfriends? The only thing missing, friends. I lack them, and through this feels almost radicalized to confess these days. I know for the fact that I'm not alone in it. And then we go into the main part of the article. Today, lonely women like me abound, and the data backs this up. About 1 in 6 Americans say they feel lonely or isolated from those around them almost at the same time. That's where hobbies comes in to guys to distract them, and gaming. The Pew Research Center, the campaign to end loneliness, goes one step further, finding that people under 30 are the loneliest age group, and that women are significantly more likely to be chronically lonely than men. I often dreaded the end of the working day when I'd find myself with the prospect of an evening spent alone. Where's her boyfriend? She said she's got a boyfriend. Why did she spend the evening with him? And then, today, lonely women like me are bound to date. That's commented before. And then, however, judging by recent media coverage, you'd be forgiven for thinking that loneliness is almost exclusively experienced by young men. And then, more yada yada. Women take on an especially high level of pressure and urgency to feel a deep connective tissue in a friendship. Women tend to view loneliness as a personal failure, but men, broadly speaking, are more likely to externalize the feeling or not recognize it at all. That's where a man's hobby comes in, takes his mind off. And more yada yada. Female loneliness is often excitational. I know a lot of people, but who really knows me? Echoes Los Angeles-based clinical psychologist, not surprised, in LA. And it's a woman, Lauren Kerwin. That's not to say men feel a mismatch between the friendship they have and the friendship they want to have, but the experts I talk to say men are less likely to blame themselves for it. There's a persistent culture script that women should be naturally good at friendship. Lonely men may be socially accepted, even accepted, but lonely women often carry shame. Not so much for strong, independent women who don't need no men. And then yada 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 yada, on and on and on, and it goes down to, while the digital realm can be hazardous for isolating young men who stumble into the manosphere, they pop at MGTOW, for lonely women like me it's still a lifeline. So social media, meeting Bella, taught me something, that the best platonic connections live over 3,500 miles away. But we still celebrate our wins, often clarify pushback when we've been stupid, and meet every new version of you with open arms. Well, that's Cosmopolitan, a woman's magazine. Alisa starting to acknowledge that all these strong independent women are not as strong and independent as they thought. On the account of loneliness, I found this LinkedIn. This was done February the 15th, so fast forward 4 days. The world celebrates love and romance on Valentine's Day. There are millions of people in America who are single and might experience the opposite, loneliness. In 2023, U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy, sounds Irish, declared an epidemic of loneliness and social isolation happening in America. According to the Pew Research Center, adults under 50 currently feel lonely. The reports 1 in 3 adults feel lonely, and 1 in 4 report lacking social and emotional support. And today many men are experiencing a friendship recession, with 15 to 20% of men having no close friends. But men are adaptable. If the 15 to 20 has a hobby, then they've got something that connects them with other men who enjoy similar hobbies. But does this mean that men are expecting a loneliness epidemic? Maybe. Pew Research Center found 16% of men and 15% of women reported feeling lonely. Several studies explain how men struggle to build socially supportive networks and maintain existing relationships over time, resulting in what was called a friendship recession among men. But then, once again, Men in general tend to develop hobbies, something that takes their interest, and that hobby is a link to other men with a similar hobby. It is known that women are more likely than men to utilize social networks for social connection and emotional support, including seeking out mental health professionals and confiding in their friends. Well, that bit resorts to that. She's on the phone trying to get in contact with her friends that she was at college with, but to no avail. Says, yet women are still no different than men in having increasing rates of loneliness despite having stronger social and emotional support structures than men. And it says this indicates that women's experience of loneliness differs from men, along with showing that despite having strong social networks, one is not immune to loneliness or social isolation. And then yada yada yada, and says finally engaging in a social activity such as a dinner party or game night to share companionship with others can make you feel more part of a celebration. Now that is linking. Also, loneliness apparently is now a human rights issue. The loneliness, this was done on May the 6th this year. The loneliness epidemic by state failure to integrate is a human rights violation, like I've just said. This was written by another woman. And loneliness is becoming increasingly common in the 21st century. In 2023, the US Surgeon General, the same person in this article, made a devastating announcement: loneliness is a public health epidemic in America. Excuse me. While this crisis extends globally, America provides a prime example of a state failure to address it. Society treats loneliness as a personal problem in a way it is, but Murphy stresses that in fact it's a systemic issue. If the marriage rate hadn't collapsed in America through feminism infecting the minds of millions of American women, then it probably wouldn't be a systemic issue. Our lonely society cannot heal through the effects of individuals alone. The real solution will require structural change. That means daddy government getting involved. When states do not integrate people into society, they build the foundations for loneliness. What about the women not choosing guys in their sexual market value range and only wanting the top 10 or 20%? It says loneliness is a mental health issue, and mental health is fundamental to human rights. States that ignore the loneliness epidemic are not simply negligent, they are violating basic human rights. And then we go on more about it. Before the pandemic with COVID, half of American adults reported meaningful levels of loneliness. Today, young people in America aged 15 to 24 report 70% less social interaction than their peers, over the last 20 years, making Gen Z the loneliest generation. And then more yada 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 yada. With the subject of female loneliness, Medium has jumped in on the bandwagon. But this is a cut-off article, but what is on this page is what we've seen on all the other MGTOW channels, like Man Talk and all the rest. The female loneliness epidemic is going to explode, and modern feminism helped create it. This was done on May the 11th this year. There's a strange thing happening right now. Millions of women are empowered than any generation in history. They don't need no men. And simultaneously more anxious, medicated, lonely and emotionally exhausted than ever. We've all seen these women on TikTok videos, on all the YouTube channels for MGTOW. What is awkward, because we're promised the exact opposite. We are told freedom would solve everything. more freedom to sleep around, more independence, because you don't need no men, more options, more choice, more autonomy. And then sometimes it creates people more freedom to self-destruct in slower, more socially acceptable ways. We've all seen women going like that, complaining they can't date or can't find a guy on TikTok. And that's basically what we're watching happen now. Attention is not love. One of the weirdest lies social media has ever sold women is that constant attention equals value, validation. It doesn't. Attention is cheap. Now this is the bit which caught my eye. If you're a moderately attractive woman with an Instagram account and a pulse, you can get hundreds of simps willing to message you, compliment you, flirt with you, sleep with you, validate you. None of that means they actually care about you, but after years of this, many women start confusing access with intimacy. They think I have endless options, hot girl summer and all that bunk. What they actually have is endless temporary interests. They are widely different things, and unfortunately modern culture never bothered explaining the difference. And then you've got to sign into the site to read the rest. Sort that. In connection with that, I found this, America Online. Single women give perfect answers on how they spend lonely nights. This was done July 17th, which was last Friday. Yeah. Now, there's quite a long, but if you look on the pictures, young woman, young woman, young woman, young, 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 young. All these women replying are not old. They're all in the early to mid-20s. Get rid of that. Single women who live alone with no man. What you all do on lonely nights. Alone, lonely and horny are not connected. All three can be true with a male partner. Cohabiting. Not called female loneliness epidemic. We're better off alone. Then why do you complain on TikTok? Single women literally live rent-free in everyone's minds. No, they don't. I can tell you what I'm not doing. I'm not cleaning up piss on the floor. In other words, you complain about guys. We have friends over. We read a book. We go out. We get our dildos out and masturbate while watching Paul Rudd movies. I don't know what a Paul Rudd movie is. We are fine. Trust me. No, you're not. Drink tea in the moonlight. Blah, blah, blah. Right now enjoying my night alone while reading his dumbass questions, laughing my ass off. She's in the bath. Women tend to prefer baths. Guys generally prefer showers. And the word lonely doesn't apply. We're a night without plans, cooking someone decent, dancing in cozy socks and all this thing. Read Stephen King. Suddenly I'm absolutely convinced I'm not alone. But look how old she is. Jenna. She looks to be about 24, 25. Another 5 years she'll be reaching the wall, and it should probably sing a different song then. I'm rarely alone. On the off chance I am, I'm ovulating. That's what the rooster is for. I'm never living with a partner again. And then on and on and on. Lots and lots of replies. There's a huge difference between a lonely man and a woman left alone, and I think you just clocked it, sir. But anyway, that's America Online. And to finish this video off, because I'm getting up on 20 minutes now, I found this Eau de Pure 2026 Loneliness Epidemic Report, who is suffering the most and getting the worst. Now this was done on May 19th. And all these, there is links to other sections of this. But if you scroll down, you got this UK, US and global data. If you go down to American data, according to the Loneliness in America last year survey conducted by the Sigma Group, over 7,500 adults, 57% of Americans are currently lonely. That's a little over half of America's population. A separate analyst used to validate loneliness scale puts the figure at 58%. Nearly 3 in 5 Americans say no one knows them. 1 in 5 say have nobody to talk to about anything that matters. More than 40% of adults aged 45 and over now report feeling lonely, up from 35%. Doesn't say what sex they are, though. Prior years, according to data centered by the Surgeon General studies for young adults, the rates are considerably higher, as we will explore in the detail below. And then we got about my country. 9 million people in the UK always feel lonely. Well, I live on my own. Sometimes over the weekend I never see a soul, but being something of an introvert, it doesn't really bother me. I have things to do. That's where gaming comes in. I have jobs to do. I just keep my mind occupied, and I generally am alone, but I don't feel lonely. It says US studies suggest that 25% number of people over 50 experiencing feelings of isolation reached 2 million. Well, I'm in that group, and that's not me. A 43% increase from the 1.4 million recorded in 2016. And then we get lots of other stuff. Biological mechanism, loneliness, physical, dementia, heart disease and stroke, and cardiovascular disease, premature mortality, mental health. Links to depression, anxiety and elevated suicide are well established. Loneliness and depression from a self-reinforcing loop, each condition makes the other more likely and more severe. Now, with that in mind, I had a look around and I found this. American Psychological Association. This was done in November 2017. So going back 10 years nearly, the number of antidepressants in use is on the rise. Users are most likely to be women, older adults and non-Hispanic whites. Then it gives you indications. 12.7% of the US population over 12 are on antidepressants. 64% increase in the percentage of people between 1999 and 2014. 19.1% of older adults age over 50 who took antidepressants in the past month. Antidepressant use increase with age. Doesn't say if it's via men or women. Well, this bit is the kicker. Women are twice as likely as men to take antidepressant medication. 16.5% of American women, compared with 8.6% of American men. I should imagine that means women are more likely than men to take antidepressants in any age group. And the 16 points of non-Hispanic white women, white Americans are taking antidepressants. Well, these white American women, how many of them are feminists? About 3 times as much as any other race or ethnic group. Going back to this, how many of these women, fast forward 10, 20 years, are going to be on antidepressants? The Grace, she's laughing her ass off in the bath reading this about women being lonely, but once she reaches the wall, she's going to be wondering where all the good men have gone, etc. But it seems that the female loneliness epidemic is just starting to creep up on society, and those women in American Online don't realize it yet, but American women are on antidepressants. That was 10 years ago, so God knows how many are on now. I think I'm on the 20 minutes now, so I'll try and find something more on this line for next week, but it could be another topic as usual. So you all know the routine, people. Like, dislike, comment, subscribe. Completely up to you. So until next month, next Monday. That's it from me. Bye bye.